I guess I don't know.
We'll call to order the January 9th regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education. I ask people to rise and salute the flag behind them. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being in attendance this evening. I'll ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Here.
Mr. Chu?
Here.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Librera?
Here.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Mr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside of the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in this meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of this meeting may also be viewed on our website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then on Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting can make a request in writing to the board secretary. In your packets that you received were the minutes from the reorganization meeting of January 3rd. Did anyone have any corrections or comments regarding those minutes? Hearing none, we will accept them and ask the secretary to enter them into the record. Our student representative is not here this evening, so we'll move on to the report of the superintendent, please.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, Danny Sullivan, has a track meet tonight, so he informed me he would not be here. So we wish him well as he's running, and the good news is it's an indoor track meet, so it'll be nice and warm. On the agenda tonight, there's a acknowledgement of New Jersey School Boards Recognition Month, which is the month of January, and the resolution that will be read brings awareness and recognition of the work the school boards in the state and this board does and acknowledges that. So happy School Boards Recognition Month to you all, and thank you. We had spoken, and we will speak a little bit tonight. We spoke in our last meeting. We'll speak a little bit tonight about board meetings and upcoming meetings. To confirm February, I sent you the list of school presentations, tentative, pending, something happening either on the board side or the school side. January 30th will be the high school, and they will be in the STEM lab, so we'll open the meeting here and then move to the STEM lab and invite anyone in the audience who wants to join us to go there. February 13th, we will hold at Union School because they will demonstrate Z-Space, which, again, came to us through a good portion of the funding came through REF, but really through the Casadante family donations. And we'll see Z-Space on February 13th. When I meet this week or next week with the Administrative Council, I'll try to get from the other principals a tentative idea of whether or not they'll bring the presentation to us, or we'll be going to them. But for now, we'll plan on February 13th at Union School. I'll talk to Mr. Schweitzer, or if any of you have an opinion about whether it'd be better to set it up in the multipurpose room or in the auditorium. My concern with setting up the formal part of the meeting in the multipurpose room is that well, no, that wouldn't be, I'll stretch, there is no aftercare there. So whatever we think is better, the cafeteria area, or we could set up a table in front of or on the stage in the auditorium. But it'll be nice to see, and for you guys to see the Z space, and you have a chance to hopefully put the glasses on and see what it's all about. Apologize for my throat. School calendar is on the agenda, and hopefully you've had a chance to review that. It more or less mirrors this year's calendar, adjusted with various for holidays and state testing and things of that nature. As noted in my communication, the REA, the RSA, the RAA, special services all had a chance to review the calendar for any input they saw that may be a conflict from in their mind.
Mr. Hurley, just one question on the school calendar. I noticed that the day after Memorial Day is still like it was last year, is a teacher professional day.
Right.
And that, I thought
And that's
we
this
did it
year
last
as well.
Because we really did not use the snow days, but we're allowing for it.
We put into the new negotiated contract the additional day as an option
Okay,
for professional development.
thank you.
So you're correct in that it was done for that reason last year, but in the negotiation process, the benefit of the professional development day was discussed and endorsed by me and the principals and supervisors as well.
Awesome, thank you.
However, the 2 extra days, as worded in the contract, still are at, my recommendation and the board's approval of the calendar. So it's not an automatic every year. Okay. I had a very positive meeting today with the 3 directors from the YMCA to talk about survey and getting back feedback. We've been getting some positive feedback throughout the year. They have a new site manager in place at Pierpont who's really doing a very good job from all accounts. They had conducted a survey of all of their schools in South Bergen. They sent out 700 questionnaires, I guess. They got back about 50 or 51 of their returns were from Rutherford. They presented the results to me today, at 2 o'clock, so I wanted to read through them, and I'll bring them forward at the next meeting. But generally, they were very positive and showed, I think, some steps in the right direction. That said, I did inform the Y that we would be entertaining any solicitation to anyone who's wishing to bring a proposal in the late winter, early spring, and hopefully review that and have a recommendation based on what proposal we received and what feedback we get from the current program. Okay, and I'll send you a copy of the survey in the next packet. The school is closed, as you know, January 16th for Dr. King's birthday. January 17th, our Finance Committee will be meeting at 7 o'clock. We'll be getting an agenda out to the folks on Mr. Kelly will prior to that meeting. On January 19th, I'll be doing I'm calling it a State of the District or State of the Schools address. As I mentioned to you last week, and we're going to put it out on the web tomorrow morning, an invitation to members of the community. Going to try to highlight the significant achievements and positive changes that have come about with the reorganization and the new improvements this year, and then present the challenges that have been identified by the board and also by the Long-Term Strategic Planning Committee going forward. Not offering any solutions because that's the charge of the committee, but just presenting some of the challenges. And the committee is working on, and I'm going to meet with Dr. Valechka Friday to finalize a survey that will go out then to the community. So the hope would be that after they hear, some information from the presentation next Thursday night, the survey follows, and they're basing some of their responses and thoughts on what they've heard. Now, being a realist, especially on a night like tonight, I don't expect that we're going to have standing room only in the auditorium. In fact, I'd be happy if we had some people there. You never know what to expect. Some of these programs we've drawn a couple of hundred, some we've drawn a handful. But Mr. Met, our video, will be recording the presentation. We'll be embedding the PowerPoint that I'm going to be using into the presentation. And very shortly, within a day or two after the presentation, we'll have it up on the web. We're not advertising that now because I prefer to have some people come out to the event. But once it's done, we'll post it. And in the posting on the web, we'll mention that there'll be a survey sent, and it might be a good idea to take a look at the presentation before you respond to the survey so that there's some information given. So that's next week. Obviously, if you can attend, that would be great. If you can't, like I said, you'll be able to see it on our website. And the committee is really doing a very, very good job. And the reports I'm getting, and I know Mr. Racine is on the committee, but they've been meeting at different buildings so that when they're talking about different grade levels and issues, they're actually seeing the buildings and they're touring the buildings, so they get a sense for a feel of the building and the facilities. And I don't know if you want to comment anything.
Just that there are parts of the buildings that I didn't know existed.
Yeah,
I found out.
especially at beer pong.
The beer pong. We found it's called the dungeon, but it's the records room.
Yeah.
And they have a full attic, which looks.
Yeah.
I did not realize how promising that looks. Just,
Yeah. Oh, the attic has tremendous potential. The problem is the egress.
Right.
And the records room is a very interesting place. And there's records going back, to the turn of the last century.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them, probably don't need to be there anymore, but they're there nonetheless. So if you want to know a work order from like 1938, you can find it down there. Right. Right outside the boiler room, if you go down. And at one point, there was discussion several years ago about maybe creating a STEM lab there in that room. And the room does have potential for things, but it's a windowless room adjacent to a boiler, so it would be a very costly renovation because of the air exchange that you need to get. Not impossible, but challenging. But it is a nice big area. So yeah, that's been a benefit, I think, of the committees going to various buildings to get to see some of the nooks and crannies that you really don't see. And the tentative plan still is on the May 8th evening of Washington School. And I may talk to Gina to see, and Bill McKay to see if they want to switch, because rather than make Gina come to two meetings, May 8th is the date when we're doing the Washington School presentation that Dr. Valechko is going to give a report to the board about the committee and the committee's perhaps final recommendations or report, or at least a status of where we're at that time. So that's still tentatively the plan for May 8th. We're beginning the registration process for preschool and kindergarten officially on the 30th of January. We have sent letters to the students who are currently in the preschool, the 3-year-old families that could come back as 4-year-olds, giving them the opportunity to register earlier to secure a spot in the 4-year-old class, and then we'll open it up to the general population. We have received many calls about preschool registration and some about kindergarten already and ahead of it. So there's interest out there, and I think we're going to be fine with that program going forward.
Is there a fee for registration?
For preschool, there's a $300 deposit, which is the first month of the tuition. And that's only for the regular general ed kids. The special ed children who are placed in preschool are tuition free.
Yeah.
The PTA reps, we're going to talk about that tonight. There are a few meetings this week. I meant to look at the calendar to get the dates. I failed to do that coming over. But I know Union School and the high school are both meeting tonight, so should you find out in a few minutes that you are the rep to one of those schools or any of the schools, you may want to check the website or shoot me an email and I'll let you know the dates for the meetings, okay? Because Mr. McLean's going to talk about that, I believe, when he gets to his report. And the last thing, well, two things I want to mention in passing. I put it in my communication to you. We are very close, but but we're still kind of far away from the ability to be one-to-one with Chromebooks for kids, which would be a wonderful thing. We had a 5-year plan. If you remember, 3 years ago, we're in the 3rd year of the plan. If you remember, if you were on the board 3 years ago, I said, I don't even know if we'll get there in 5 years. We're not that far away. And we are trying to see if we can get there for next year. It'll be looking at the budget. I met today with some REF people. I'm going to meet with other groups to see if we can get there. It would be the ability for students in grades 6 to 12 to bring a device home, and the ability for students in 1 to 6 to have a device to use in school. And the benefit of that is, we'll talk more about this as time goes on, whether we get there or not next year. If we don't get there next year in year 4, we'll get there at the beginning of year 5. It won't be the end of year 5. So we're still going to be ahead of it. And the credit really to the faculty and administrators who are part of the 2 committees, the blended committee and the one-to-one pilot. Because what we really have done, and Ms. O'Donnell has been to many, many meetings, and she reports back the same thing every time, we really did it the right way in that we had the curriculum take the lead. We put the curriculum in before we put the devices in people's hands. So now what the teachers are calling for and what the kids are calling for and what the parents are calling for is let's get these devices. There are schools that go out and they either have a lot of money or they get a lot of foundation money, and they go out and they buy everybody a computer, and they haven't done anything yet with the curriculum, and they're expensive paperweights. We did it, I think, the right way, and the faculty and the students really have accepted now this blended curriculum culture. And when we are able to get the device in everybody's hands, it's going to be they're going to be well used. So that's a good thing. So we'll see how it goes. But the good news is we're going to get there. If not next year, certainly the following year. And I'd love to get there next year because I hear from parents as well that they're so supportive of the changes and the use of the technology in the flipped classroom. But the problem is they have 2-3 students in different schools and they have one family computer. And kids, I said this afternoon at a meeting we had with some folks, and Mr. Kelly was there. I think it's a good thing as a parent to have kids fighting about doing homework instead of fighting about not doing homework. But to get on that computer and what I'm hearing is you give them the stuff to do. Can you give us a device? So we're getting there. We're getting close, and it's a credit to everyone that we're making that kind of progress and making it within the constraints of the budget. And last thing, just if you saw the administrative council notes, I want to remind everybody because we have a lot going on. The policy revision that's mentioned there, we are in the process of going through that mammoth, about 1,900-page policy manual from Strauss-Esme. The administrators, Mr. Kelly, Ms. Fargo, and I, supervisors are going through all of it to see if anything that's different from what we currently have done and why it's different and what we want to accept and what we don't want to accept. And then we're going to send all those revisions out to Strauss-Esme, the deadline, hopefully by the middle of February. They'll give us a couple of weeks turnaround. Once we get the revised version draft, I will send that electronically to all of you, not just the policy committee. This way, all of you have from whenever I get it until June to review any of it that you like. The policy committee then will begin to meet. We'll try to get it done in maybe 3 or 4 meetings or where we could look at by thirds and really take a harder look at those areas that maybe are a little more high profile or a little more, or a little different from what we've had in the past. And then we'll be able to hopefully move the entire manual in June and then in July. So we close out the school year with the one set of policy and enumeration, and we begin the next year with that. So that's where we're at with that, and you may have seen mentioned today, if you read the administrative council notes, that that's what's coming back. Okay, and I've been in contact at various couple board meetings with Mr. Chu to review the timeline and the plan so that he's aware of it. Okay, and that's it.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments for Superintendent? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to my report, which will be, again, noticeably short. No one oohed or... Okay, so but I do want to save some time at the last meeting. I discussed that, I'd like to later in the meeting, we just throw the floor open for some discussion about meeting structure, community involvement, making the meetings more dynamic for community and ourselves, and we'll do that. I've received some email regarding that, and then hopefully some other points that we can discuss tonight. The one thing I will pass around now, and I realized in last week's packet was the contact sheet that had people's names on it. So the names and the phone numbers and everything was right, but the assignments was not. That was kind of like left over from previous version. So the committee assignments that were in your packet this week are the correct committee assignments, okay? Just in case there's any confusion on that. And we'll straighten it out and put it into this traditional format. Tonight, what I'd like to do is pass around the missing piece the missing piece was the assignment for liaison and representative function. So again, I went back to the feedback I had received from most of you regarding preferences, and I tried to align them as best I could. One more? And align those as best I could. So I still have draft at the top of this. If somebody feels they really would prefer not to handle one of these, I didn't go and check with everybody on it, although it aligns again with most of what we received from what I received back in email. So again, it can flex to suit if someone has a particular need that we have to change to. I didn't really speak with people, and nobody had volunteered for the school board's delegate and alternate positions. Except for Mrs. Jones, who is a good soul and really every year helps us with that, and it does take some effort. So if there are questions about those, actually I think Diane's the best person to answer what it involves and what might be needed. So I'll wait a few days to hear back from people, and if there's no big changes, then we'll ask the office to put it into the format. I would encourage folks to try to attend the State of the District address on the 19th. It seems like it's going to warm up later this week, so I'll be in Canada that week, that night, just in case it's getting too hot here. So I won't be able to be there, but I look forward to seeing what's available.
He said, no, I get one viewer then.
You got at least one viewer on the internet. Yeah. So, and I don't know if there's, you mentioned that there'll be a presentation of some of the challenges that have come up during the long-term strategic planning. So I don't know if these are things that the board has been aware of, or just, so that
Most of them are consistent with what the board, identified in the self-evaluation. I mean, the challenges are budget, special education costs, the one-to-one, the increased technology, the facilities and potential enrollment increases, wellness in terms of gyms and fields, and keeping curriculum balanced with the arts and technology and STEAM. They're the challenges we've been talking about, and I think they're pretty much I think I made the comment the night we did the self-evaluation that it isn't remarkable because I think it was positive to see that the board, independent of each other in the self-evaluation and independent of the long-term strategic planning committee, pretty much were consistent with what they see as the challenges. And the idea of the night of the presentation is not to even hint at any suggestions, simply to say, here's what the committee's looking at, here's what the board is looking at, and here's some of the things for you to consider when you choose to respond to the survey.
How will what sort of tone do you expect the survey would take? Would it be give us feedback in terms of your ideas for options?
No. It's going to. I think what we're going to try to do is guide without leading. so that there may be, rank what you think are the three strongest attributes in the schools and give on the survey 8 or 9 choices with the opportunity to fill in a couple. What do you think are the 3 or 4 challenges that face us with the opportunity to fill in a few? So there's a little bit of guidance. I've reached out to every superintendent in the county for feedback and copies of surveys that they have done related to long-term planning over the last several years. I got back about, 10 or 12. Got a couple from New York State, got a couple from Virginia as well. And asked them for feedback of what was what was good advice, bad advice in putting forward the survey. And too much open-ended, I think, leads to filibustering and venting about certain things, but allowing some opportunity for that open-ended nature is important too. So we're working, and we also reached out a little bit to indirectly to school boards, because some of the folks who, rather than paying the fee to get them, some of my colleagues shared with me some of the advice that they had. So Dr. Valechko and I are going to meet Friday to try to come up with something that then she could probably run by the committee and say this is the final draft. But the idea is to get, the idea is to try to build on our strength and identify prioritize those challenges so that we have guidance on how to address them. Right? I don't think we're going to be able to anticipate every problem and solve every anticipated problem. But hopefully between the committee, the board, and the community input, we can come to an agreement of what the biggest obstacles we are predicting and what's the best way to confront those.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We'll move on. Okay, so,
Can I-
yes.
I didn't get the other side last week. I got nothing of your.
There is no other side.
In your packet.
So last week, because the last week, I got the wrong one. I got
No,
the
so
wrong
in
one.
last week's packet was a list that has
Right.
phone numbers on
Right,
it.
that I didn't get.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll get that to you.
Okay.
Okay. And that was,
Am I the only one, or
I
is
don't
that
think we
me?
got it.
I'm
Yeah,
not
maybe
sure.
it was only in
I think I think we pulled it, and maybe
Okay.
it got to yours earlier.
Maybe it
because-
was just
yeah.
in mine. Okay.
I
Just so you
think
know.
I got
Good.
it.
Okay, thank you. Not
Good.
that more confusion.
Nothing to
I
correct
make
then.
copies of that.
You'll
Yeah.
get, what you will get is something that looks strikingly like this, but in the correct
But the right
format.
format.
That was probably-
Correct
So we're
information.
okay.
That was probably sent to you to guide you to do this.
It did.
And it did, it worked. Okay, one thing about, I know you said a couple of days, but we do have a union school PTA counts meeting this week, high school this week, so I don't know if,
Yeah, so that's, you're okay with Union School PTA?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So,
They're meeting today?
no, this week, I'm not sure. No, this week,
Oh, they're meeting this week, all right. I'll
I
have
meant to look at the date on the web, I just inadvertently, I forgot to do it.
I'll
Check
take
the
a
web.
look at it.
And
The high school?
the high school?
Do you know when it is?
I think it's Wednesday night.
In the 7:30?
Yeah, I double check, or I'll double check, but I believe it's Wednesday night.
Washington's tomorrow night, I'm planning on going.
Washington is tomorrow night? Okay. So I mean, again, I don't want to rush anybody, but if people are comfortable, I could let Mrs. Forte know, because there probably are meetings coming.
yeah, I mean, as far as the PTA liaisons, everybody
We go with
that's
that?
assigned is okay? Yeah. Yeah. so
And-
let's do-
And the one thing with the new board members, which we didn't discuss when we met, I don't think, was PTA meetings, but you could talk to one of your colleagues or give me a call if you want some guidance on the report. You may have been at meetings when you've seen the board representative there, but feel free to, if you either talk to one of your colleagues or call me before the meeting. Okay?
I'll volunteer to go to both those with the new members if they would like to have.
That's even
Just so
better.
they can-
Thank you.
It's up to you. I mean, if you don't want me, that's fine, but if you feel more comfortable, I'll be glad to go with
Or
you.
contact Mrs. Jones or contact me if you want,
Okay.
or one of your other members. And it's a pretty simple, report, and it's, I think it's really the main function is to hear and bring back information as well as to bring forward information from parents.
Are the dates that you shared in terms of the board meetings that will focus on the specific schools, are
Yeah.
they set in stone at this point? Can we share
As
those
far as
with
I'm
you?
concerned, they are, yeah. I mean, the only thing that could come up is if something transpires here where we know we're going to have an issue, like we never anticipated a couple of the issues that we've had in the past, and if we feel that would be more prudent to postpone, or if something happened on a school level where they asked me to postpone. But when we look at the number of meetings, we look at the calendar into June, we don't have a lot of wiggle room to get everybody in, so I think we're pretty much set in stone.
So that would be a good thing to share.
Yep. By the way, all this time that I took doesn't count against Mr. McLean's.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Well, isn't there a national championship
There it
game
is.
starting?
No, football season actually ended yesterday. Yeah, season's over, there's no more football, we're on to baseball.
It's 8 PM. We have no members of the public present. We do have a camera. No comments to be had? Okay, so we'll move on then to the agenda items with action to be taken. And I would ask Mrs. Ahmed to take personnel, please.
Surely. I'd like to move the following resignations, retirements, salary adjustments, reassignments, appointments, etc., as recommended by the superintendent of schools, pending approval from the State Department of Education, subject to the New Jersey criminal background check and other legal requirements.
Is there a second?
Second?
All, this is a voice vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Which one?
1, Michelle Muller, to accept the resignation, her resignation as lunch monitor at Washington School, effective December 31st, 2016. 1A, Kimberly Bradley, to accept her resignation as a teacher assistant at the kindergarten center, effective January 13th, 2017. 2, Megan Wilk, to accept her resignation as English teacher at Rutherford High School on the 3rd of January. And 2A, to approve Angela Cipollina as a teacher assistant at the kindergarten center, effective January 17th through June 30th, 2017, at the hourly rate of $19.20. This is a replacement position. 3, Mackenzie Dreyer, to approve Mackenzie as a part-time teacher assistant at Washington School, effective January 10th through June 30th, 2017. 4, Elizabeth Gilmore, to approve Elizabeth as the after-school computer room monitor at Pierpont School, effective January 3rd, 2017. 5, high school co-curricular, to approve and rescind the following high school assignments for the 2016-17. Rescind Megan Wilk to 2018 class co-advisor, and approve Michael Stracco as the 2018 class co-advisor. 6, substitute teachers, to approve substitute teachers for the 16-17 school year, effective January 10th, per diem rate of $80, as listed. 7, substitute secretary, to approve the following substitute secretary for the 16-17 school year, effective January 4th at the hourly rate of $11, Carol Villano. 8, home instructor, to approve the home instructor for the 16-17 school year, effective January 10th, 2017, at the rate of $35, Linda Rind. Jennifer Henderson, number 8, to approve the disability leave without pay for Jennifer lunch monitor at kindergarten center, effective January 30th, following the birth of her baby, to be followed by child rearing leave of absence under the Family Leave Act without pay through March 10th, 2017. 10, Jennifer Capuana, to approve a disability leave with pay for Jennifer, teacher assistant at Washington School, effective March 20th. And it's for a child rearing leave of absence under the Family Leave Act, May 19th, 2017. So it's March 20th, 2017 through May 19th? Yes.
Yes.
11,
20
Jo-
days with pay, and then the unpaid leave.
Yeah. 11, Joni Dre, to approve, or Joanne, is that? I'm not
Joanne.
sure. Joanne?
Mhm.
Dre is a lunch monitor at Washington School, 2 hours per day at the hourly rate of $10, starting January 10th through June 30th. 12, Danielle Engelson, to approve a disability leave with pay for Danielle, kindergarten teacher at kindergarten center, effective April 24th through 20 days, the birth of her baby, and that'll be to June 30th, 2017. That'll be, wait a minute, following the birth of her baby to be followed by a child rearing leave of absence under the Family Leave Act without pay through June 30th, 2017. Kelly Lancaster, to approve Ms. Lancaster as an English teacher at the high school, effective January 1st, 2017 through June 30th, the ending salary of $50,336. This is a replacement position. 14, travel reimbursements, to approve the following travel reimbursements for the 16-17 school year as listed. And 15, this one? That one too, yeah? Oh, okay, just children? But I mean, this one,
Summarize everything
Okay.
in there.
All right, so be it resolved by the Rutherford Board of Education, School Boards Recognition Month, whereas the New Jersey School Boards Association has declared January 2017 to be School Board Recognition Month, a time that all residents might acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members, and whereas the Rutherford Board of Education embraces the goal of high-quality education for all New Jersey public school students, and we're going to skip down on the next page. Whereas resolved that the Rutherford Board of Education does hereby recognize the services of local school board members throughout New Jersey as we join communities statewide in observing January 2017 as a School Board Recognition Month, and be it further resolved that the Rutherford Board of Education urges all New Jersey citizens to work with their local boards of education and public school staffs toward the improvement of our children's education.
Thank you. Is there a second to personnel
Second.
resolutions 1 through 14 and the unabridged version of 15? Seconded by
Second.
Mr. Chu. Are there any questions or comments regarding these resolutions?
Actually, yes, the co-curricular, high school co-curricular change,
Number 5?
5.
Mhm.
What is that position exactly?
Class advisor,
It's on the next page on the top.
Oh, okay.
the
The
class
rescinding.
rescinding the
That's
person
a
who-
change over for next year.
No, for this year.
Co-advisor and
The,
approve Michael's-
the teacher who was holding the position resigned her position as a teacher.
Okay.
So
starting
we're
next
rescinding
year.
her, no, starting this year to finish.
So this is an advisor for the junior class.
So this is a junior class advisor. Ms. Wilk was the advisor, resigned her position, left the district, so now she's being replaced to finish out the year. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Mr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into curriculum and instruction, Mrs. Jones, would you please?
I move resolution number 1, home instruction, that the Rutherford Board of Education to approve the home instruction for the following students, and the names are on file. Student 11740, effective 12/15/16. Student 29513, effective 12/19/2016, and student 14011, effective January 3rd, 2017. Resolution number 2, in harassment, imitation, of bullying decision. The Rutherford Board of Education to affirm the superintendent's decision in HIB investigation 2016-09 and 2016-10 for the reasons set forth in the superintendent's decision to the students' parents, and directs the business administrative board secretary to transmit a copy of the board's decision to the effect of students' parents. Resolution number 3 is another HIB, and the number of this investigation is 2016-11. It reads the same. Resolution number 4 is an overnight trip to approve the following overnight trip for the FCCLA State Spring Leadership Conference in Cherry Hill, March 23rd and 24th of this year. Sponsored Geraldine Howard. Overnight trip to be it resolved by the Rutherford Board of Education to approve the following overnight trip for the FBLA Conference in Atlantic City, March 15th through 16th, 2017, sponsored Judith Levin. Co-curricular club, be it resolved by the Rutherford Board of Education to change the name of the high school co-curricular club from Gay Straight Alliance, GSA, to Gender Sexuality Awareness, GSA. Resolution number 7 is to approve our school calendar for the year 2017 through 2018. And resolution number 8 is field trip approvals. There are the attached list for the field trips for the 2016 and 17 school year. Resolution number 9 is out-of-district placements. The attached list for tuition and other services provided for out-of-district placements for the 2016-2017 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second to curriculum instruction 1 through 9?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. LeBeau. And any questions or comments regarding this?
Resolution number 4, overnight trip, FCCLA State Spring Leadership Conference.
As family consumer science, every year we have students go down as textiles, cooking, all the areas under family consumer science. And we've had state winners and
And the FBLA conference?
future business leaders. Right, and those, the FCC one, that is the only competition. The FBLA, we had students qualify for the regional level to move on to the state championship.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No? I would ask the secretary to pull forward, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to finance, I'd ask Mrs. LeBrera, please.
Sure. Number 1, the approval of bills. Joe, we're approving the amended bill list, right, with the additional items, separate from the packet. Bills totaling $4,861,257.06, with detail as listed. Number 2, whereas the Rutherford Board of Education issued a request for proposals for health benefits broker of record services for the 2017 calendar and received 1 response from Brown & Brown Benefits Advisors, the district's current broker of record. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford Board of Education to approve the contract with Brown & Brown Benefits Advisors to serve as the health insurance broker of record and to provide health benefits consulting services to the district for the 2017 calendar year at a cost of $15,000.
Thank you. Is there a second for?
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that? Mr. Mazzone? Any questions or comments on finance resolutions 1 or 2?
Sure. So we got the packet with just a additional. right?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
The additional $22,000.
Yes, the second line on the revised bills list.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Having none, I ask the secretary to pull the board, please.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
The crisp, cold weather makes people happy. So, okay, and under policy, we have no resolutions listed. Are there anything to be added?
Oh, sorry. No, we're going to have a meeting and then we'll.
Very good, thank you.
Not yet.
Under building and grounds, nothing for this evening?
No.
Okay. Under old business, current business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring to the floor? This would be the point where I was thinking that we could discuss just, as much time as we would like as a group to, talk about ways that we might consider changing our board meeting structure. For me, it was with two things in mind. One would be to make it more engaging for our community, but then also, I think, for ourselves, so it's a little less rote as far as, reading resolutions and passing them and maybe trying to spur some dialogue. So I had received a comment by email, which we can go into, but is there anybody that has some ideas they wanted to lay forward? Yes, Mrs. Levera.
So I'll take another crack at it. While I think everybody does a very good job of reading all of the resolutions, I do think that there's a fair number of them that are fairly routine. And I know that since we're all reading the agenda in advance and since the agenda is online, it seems to me like if we would be able to advance through a fair amount of the content if we didn't read the entire agenda, particularly for the items that are routine business. And we would leave more time for discussion about things that are going on or open issues. I know we've talked about having some opportunity for more discussion about what's happening at the committee level, which I think would probably make for a more sort of valuable discussion, because it would be information that isn't necessarily always in the packet. I know there's summaries of the committee meetings in the packet, but there might be more opportunity to ask questions, talk about open issues, talk about decisions that are on the horizon in those committees. I think tonight's agenda was rather short, but sometimes we do get into a situation where we could spend 15, 20 minutes reading through the agenda items which we've all read in advance and which are already provided in writing. So to be able to sort of short circuit some of that in terms of the formality of the meeting, we could use that time to discuss more issues and actually have a more engaging dialogue, which I think would also be more attractive and appealing to folks that are coming to the meetings.
Thank you.
I agree with Sally.
Yes.
Okay. You said it perfectly.
Mr. Mazzone?
I would agree, and I think last meeting you had made a great suggestion that we allow the public to speak for that open time early in the meeting. I think that, we have a great attendance when we have programs brought in from the schools, and then we have a clearing of the house. It might be nice, I know several members of the community have approached me in the last year, and I've encouraged them to come to meetings, and I think what's put them off is I got to sit through
Having to wait through,
the course of business. And I think that you do a very nice job, Kevin, when people do get up to speak, to explain to them that, we're not going to have that dialogue with you. I don't know if there's some way we can put that out on the board webpage to let people know that it's not that.
Yeah, my point of that is that it's not, it's not a tribunal.
Right.
It's not a question answer period per se, because that could go on for a long time. And even if we go to the words of the sunshine laws, it's that the public may be heard, right? It's for us to be able to hear them more than debate, that type of thing. Of course, if we can answer some questions, resolve some issues for somebody in the community, we should try to do that. But yeah, so okay, so.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Met? Is there a way of monitoring how many people watch the web broadcast?
Yes, usually after about 24 hours, we get statistics where we can see how many minutes they watched, where they watched from, what device they watched from, how they found the video, whether we directed them to the high school page.
Could you get that information for me? Or, I don't mean immediately. Unless you can, that would be wonderful. Wow. I'm curious.
Analytics.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Because I'm curious in, how many folks are watching. I think people have a tendency to show up, and I don't want to be negative, when there's something that they want to vent about, or they have a concern or a complaint. It doesn't mean that they're not interested in what's going on. I'm just curious as to what our viewership is, to see if people are actually watching. I know the one time that we had a little snafu with uploading it, and it went up a couple of days late. We did hear from a couple of people who said, hey, it wasn't up. So we know at least some people are watching, right?
That's good.
Looking at this very quickly, our least popular shows only get 16 and 36 views. Our more popular ones have seen 193, 106, 153, and
Great.
then the whole range.
So generally, we're in the hundreds.
Yeah, about 110, 120.
That's
Not bad.
pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to work on my wardrobe choices.
Exactly.
I expect next year to be nominated for a Golden Globe.
You that are closest to the camera, you may want to dress it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that is encouraging.
It
That's
is.
because 100 people here would fill,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's a lot more than I would think.
Yeah, another suggestion in terms of building support or marketing what goes on here might be a sort of snapshot calendar that shows the special presentations that will happen in each month, particularly those that are going to be highlighting the different schools. But then I would also think, the budget presentation, or if there's other presentations that might sort of rise to the top of the list, so that folks don't necessarily have to read through the 15-page agenda to understand what's going to be discussed.
Let me put this out to the board. Next week, Wednesday of next week, I have my administrative council meeting. I'm inviting the IT team to the beginning of the meeting and to do a presentation. The first part of the presentation has to do with email moving perhaps to Gmail from first class, which gives us a lot of benefits. A lot of benefits. We're going to make that move, but we want to have a dialogue with the administrators first about it. Second part of the presentation is to talk about our webpage. And the third part is going to be to talk about social media. And to give you a little thumbnail, we're not going to spend a lot of dialogue at this meeting on the webpage and social media, but quite frankly, I think the webpage is not as user-friendly as it could be. And there is a reason for that, but that's old news. And I want to get it where, without even reinventing the whole page, but get it where there's more. Right now things get bumped off very quickly, and there's not as many links to other forms of media through the web page. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have some Twitter accounts. The high school has one. The high school athletics has one. Union School has one. The district has one. We have a Facebook, but it's almost like this clandestine secret. It's out there. When I look at the high school athletic page and a Twitter account, and there's only 100 so followers, to me that's mind-boggling, because you have several hundred students who are participating in athletics, and you have a whole bunch of people who come to the games. You think there'd be thousands of followers. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's all being done kind of unilaterally and not really out. So I want to try to come up with a district approach to whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook, or whether it's none of the above. Maybe the administrators feel they don't want to go that road, but then it becomes more of a directed effort. So to that point, I'm asking the administrators, what the IT folks are going to ask the administrators, is to send to me a list of things that they would like to see a little different on the webpage, without blowing it all up. And I'll ask you to do the same. If there's things that you would like to see maybe front and center that are kind of buried somewhere, and if we can do it. There's certain limitations. There are certain things that the IT folks tell me they can't do with our current configuration, but there's a lot of things that they can do. So if you want to send that to me by email in the next week or so, and as Mr. McLean often reminds you, just send it directly to me, not to the whole board. I will put that in the hopper with the things that come from the administrators, and we'll see what improvements we can make on the webpage. But see, that's to your point. If we could find a way, if we had a district Twitter, and believe me, I'm celebrating a birthday this week, and I get a lot of things discounted now when I go to the store. So the idea of Twitter is not, don't ask me about Twitter. But we have to live in the world we are living in, and that's how people communicate. We're going to find out in more detail on January 20th, right? That's how people communicate. So if we have the knowledge of, and within this Twitter account, apparently, they're telling me today, you could check where you want to be. So maybe you're a Lincoln School student who wants to get the tweets from all the schools, but maybe you don't want that. Maybe you just want the Lincoln School. Or you're an athletic parent who really just cares about basketball. And there'll be layers and things like that. So we're not utilizing everything that we could be utilizing. So send me your thoughts, and we'll see what we can get done.
So are we trying to get more citizens to watch? Is that the ultimate goal? Or?
I think to watch or to attend or to just be aware.
Be informed.
I think
right.
once people are aware, right, it'll solicit maybe more input, and if that's at home
Right.
on a computer.
Well, I just have to say, I think, I don't think we'll be as entertaining as Prime Minister's questions or something like that in the UK. That's not going to happen. And we're not going to do anything provocative here, right? And the fact that I think the meetings are run, I think trying change is fine as well, but I just want to say, I think the fact that I think the people trust us, and we don't have fireworks here, right? And so to me, it's a good sign.
I agree.
The fact that you don't have a lot of people here means that they trust us with our work. Everyone is busy. Families are busy. They have lots of things because you always do something at the expense of something else. I think it's a testament in the ways the meetings are run, by you, Kevin, and Mr. Hurley, and the work that Joe does as well. I think we're really. I can't envision a way the meetings could be more efficient.
I think it's a twofold thing. I agree with you. I think when people aren't here, normally when I see people here, my first thought is, what's the issue?
Right.
Now that's, it would be nice to have them come out and say we're doing a great job. And if we can encourage that, I'm all for that. I'm encouraged by the fact that, there's at least 100-something people watching. I didn't think there'd be that much. And that doesn't count the Comcast people who might still watch it on TV. But I think there's another side to this, and that is more engagement within the meeting among members of the board, whether there's people in the audience or people just watching on TV. So there's more dialogue without, burdening your efforts as volunteers to be putting excessive hours in so that we can discuss, because we've spent a lot of time on more perfunctory things. So I think it's a double-edged benefit. But to your point, I agree. If you don't get a big turnout, you unfortunately think, that's a vote of confidence, but I think it's true.
Are some of the items on the agenda required by law? In other words, financial and
Well, they're-
personnel-related discussions?
Yeah,
Has
so
to be
all
public,
of
yeah.
all of the items on our agenda, or certainly most of them, would be requirements, by statute, that we've presented them in a public forum, have discussed in an appropriate manner, and made our decision as a board to approve them or not, based on largely on the recommendation of the administration. The question is, I think, is what is the format by which you must present them? Okay, so, and I've been on the board, quite a while. When I first joined the board, I thought, okay, we're reading all of these things because it's a requirement to put them into the public record. But I think that, as we said, we published the agenda on the website. People can get it. People could write to us. I don't know if people ever ask for a mail copy of an agenda or not, but the agenda's available. When you think of the practical aspect of reading through, and I'll use personnel as an example, at the beginning of the year where we have a lot of new employees and such, there may be 30 or 40 employees listed that we're referencing coming on board, going and changing positions, something like that. I would doubt that people watching on the television or through the webcast are making note of all of that, right? So I mean, if they had the agenda, they can get the agenda and it can be available to them. So we're not, we're still being transparent, and I think that's the issue, right? Is that we have to be transparent about things. So we can still be transparent, but maybe find, maybe enhance our productivity as a board, right? And it's, the idea of, are people coming here to the meetings or watching at home, that sort of thing. I think, again, engaging, having people understand what's going on in the schools will spur them to, come forth with some ideas that they see other places, right? I mean, because we're not the we're not the keepers of everything sage and wise, right? I mean, there could be some really good ideas coming from outside to us, and to be able to have our administration hear them and consider them.
There are some boards that operate without committees, and they operate within discussions of the whole board. And this board has always operated with the committee, which I think has benefits, and I think that it allows board members to become more focused on certain aspects and become perhaps more in tune, right, to certain parts of the operations of the school. But the point being, the entire board has to vote, and if there is discussion of any note, I mean, we're talking about strategic planning. We're talking about, I'll give you an example of, we're continually trying to maintain and expand and sustain some of the special education programs that we're bringing back to district. That involves space, that involves tuition coming back, it involves salaries going out. That's a discussion that the whole board might want to hear, as opposed to just curriculum and instruction or, finance. So, to provide some time for general discussion of what happens at committee and more expansive, I think is a way, whether or not there's people watching and present, for the entire board's sense of understanding, it's a good thing.
The example right now, for most meetings, we don't even start until 8:30 after presentations, and now we have time to discuss. It's great. And so also I think a lot of things we do read, it doesn't add any value to our function and to the public. Reading off, say, student ID numbers. No one really, that doesn't add anything to anybody. Right? And along back to communications, right? Have we ever thought about having a position for a communications director of any kind? Because other districts have those, and that may be something that may want to play around with.
You mean as a paid position?
Get paid position or start part-time if you need.
I don't know. Yeah. We pay a stipend to someone for a newsletter, and we pay a stipend to our webmaster to put things out. I think in terms of, that's something. If I'd be more inclined, there's a lot of positions I'd like to see in the district that would be dealing more with kids. But I do think we could do a better job, and that's why I want to have the conversation with the webmasters about the web page and social media, of getting some of the good news that we do, good information out.
The IT people are not communications people. They're the two really separate functions.
Right.
And they can set it up, but doing national communications, getting out there, reaching people,
Yeah.
is different.
Well, right now, every building's got someone who supposedly handles getting out. It's not PR, even though that's what it is. The term is not PR. We have another term for it. And it's a very small stipend, and they get it out. That's something, again, as we go down through long-term planning, we could look at.
Think about, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Another idea was for the meetings, President Kevin, about maybe having not really themed meetings, but put a call out saying we'd like to hear about topic X next month, so people can think about it and come tell us.
At the board.
So, yeah, at the board. So announce our meetings that we're taking feedback on something.
See, to Mr. Chu's point, though, the last coffee hour I had, we had a councilwoman, 2 board members, and 1 parent.
Right.
It was nice. We had a nice, hour conversation, the 4 of us, and it was a pretty good conversation. We covered a lot of different topics. I took that as, people aren't. That could be anything you want to talk about. Come and you have my ear, and we had 1 person. Now, you could look at it a number of ways, but I think that's a pretty high level of satisfaction.
Oh, yeah.
So again, I think it's good to try to draw people here, but I think if we need to think about what's in the best interest of this body in terms of the dialogue between us, and then if people are watching or if they come, that's a bonus. Because I think, it's a cold night in January, you got the national championship game on, you got other things taking your time, and, they may not come here to watch this. But if we have a good dialogue and then they watch it on the web, the information is getting out.
I think
I appreciate the idea of trying to make it shorter, but it confuses me as to how to do it. So could I just ask you, Sally, since you're making report, would you please take personnel and tell me how you would like to have it done? Or would you take curriculum instruction and tell me how you would like to get it, so I get an idea of what we are doing?
Right, so we had discussed this maybe about a year and a half ago, right, where we had talked about taking certain items on the agenda and sort of putting them into a sort of routine, normal business piece and doing that on a monthly basis, right? So in the case of personnel, let's take that as an example. If perhaps there's a new position in personnel, something that might be created as a result of the reorg, perhaps that's one that you might want to pull out, right? So that one we might actually want to highlight and talk about differently. But to the extent that something's a replacement position or someone's going out on maybe a short-term leave or coming back, I would say that I would move items 1 through 13 and as listed. That's what I would suggest. And then, for items 14 and 15, if there's something new or something strategic about those positions or something about those that isn't necessarily normal business, then I would suggest that those get highlighted. That would be my suggestion, but certainly I think it would be something that we'd want to all discuss and
Yeah.
Sally's been trying.
Yes.
Well, as to that, who's going to decide what should be read and what shouldn't be read? And why, if we want to inform the public on everything we do, and we're not going to read them, why do we have to be on TV? If they don't hear half of the agendas?
Well, again, the idea would be to replace that time, not to shorten the meetings necessarily, but to replace that
Right.
time with discussions more along the lines of this type of thing, right? Where we're actually discussing points, debating points, trying to come up with some, potentially new ways of doing things. And it's it's strictly a judgment call, I think, but my judgment would be that someone watching on television or possibly tuning in on the internet would find that sort of thing more interesting to look at, to listen to and watch than, the simple reading of an agenda which they could get a copy of and read themselves if they so felt. Now, the one exception would be somebody that's not able to read, the audible side of it. I had often wondered if our agendas could be made available, through artificial intelligence in, an audible form as well, because that's a possibility, that somebody listens, without watching, that sort of thing. Along the line, because I think I have an idea which could be, answering some of these things. I have to take us back in time a little bit. So, before many of you joined the board, the structure of the meetings was we'd have 2 meetings a month. One was a work session on the first Monday of the month, and the second was the regular meeting. Now, during the work session, you would have the agenda. You'd have a couple of action items that you'd vote on, but you'd have the agenda for the regular meeting. And we would read through the entire agenda and then discuss different points. And then during the regular meeting, that would be read again and voted upon. So there we were reading through the things twice. When we moved to having, to doing away with that work session meeting format and working strictly with regular meetings, one of the things I was concerned about, and I guess I still would be, is that people may feel reticent to to ask a question, to voice a concern over something that is now at the threshold of being approved, right? Because it gets moved, and then we ask for questions, and really, if you have something that's bothering you about it, you may just be a little reserved about bringing it up at that point. We're right there. I don't want to be the one stopping progress, that type of thing. So I was wondering if there could be a kind of a hybrid approach to this, to where we would say, and really just kind of fleshing this out still, right? But where we would go, committee by committee through the meeting, and we would have a, the first if we were talking personnel. The first thing for the, the chair of personnel would be to present any meeting minutes in some depth that we've done, because it may be that those meeting minutes are what led to some of the things that are on the agenda. And then without moving them, without going to that point, go back to that work session type of approach where we're not going to read through it, but it's been our responsibilities. Each of us should have the responsibility not to hear these things for the first time at the meeting, right? We need to find an hour or two during the week to be able to read through them. But to just say, in a summary fashion, okay, we've got, in personnel, we've got 20 items. 6 of them are for, this kind of routine business. It's these. Does anybody want to discuss any of them? So it's the group that decides what gets discussed. And then if there's something that somebody's uncomfortable with, and prior to actually entering this, we would have already had the floor open to the public to be able to address any topic, right? We're not going to say just the agenda items, but address any topic. So we've gone through that. So now we've heard from the public. We've got that, and somebody may say, I came in here thinking this resolution was fine for me, but now I've heard something from the public which makes me a little more concerned about it. And somebody may say, I wish we would table this. And so maybe we never actually put it to resolution that night, but as a group we decide that, okay, we're going to table this, we're going to ask the superintendent to get us some more detail on it, or something like that. But at least we'd have the chance to ask some questions and such, before you had the pressure of it being a motion that you have to vote on in 2 minutes. And then so we'd go through and my thought would be, so we do personnel, and then we'll go through the resolutions for personnel. We get all the discussion done. Okay, now, Mrs. Ahmed, please, and you would simply, okay, I'm moving personnel items 1 through 20, or maybe we say we want to break it up so that 1 through 18 are moved together, and 19 and 20 are individual votes, because somebody may feel, want to vote something, not vote for all of them, but there may be some that type of thing. But we wouldn't have to read through everything that's on the agenda, because that would be available to people to see, but we've had the chance to discuss it, that type of thing. And then we would move on to, to curriculum and instruction, and go through the same thing, where we discuss it first, everybody's comfortable with it, okay, now we move it, and we vote on it, what we're voting on, and likewise. That was just, again, kind of a real rough idea, but kind of a hybrid between what we used to do and what we're doing now.
I don't mean to sound like a grandmother here, but going back in time, we read that because it was a legal requirement.
It's not a legal requirement.
No, you've checked
It
that?
is not a legal requirement. Never was a legal requirement. Maybe somebody told you that, but that's not accurate.
Yeah.
I serve as a board member on the South Bergen Jointure. I'm a member of their Board of Education. Every meeting has run now for the last 3 years, and I'm not suggesting endorsing this. I'm just telling you how it's run. Personnel items 1 to 9, all in favor. They call the roll. Finance items 1 to 15, all in favor. They don't read a single item of anything on the board. The agenda gets done in about 5 minutes. The meetings take about 45 minutes because there's discussion about topics and things like that. But no, there's no legal requirement. It's a legal requirement that is published, that is available to the public, that is posted somewhere in a public domain, and that copies are maintained and available upon request. Those are all publications. Now, what's legal and what's good practice, or what's the philosophy of a board, those are two different things. But it's not a legal requirement. There are some things that we want to say sometimes for the public record, we want to have out there, but there's no requirement that you have to read it. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's always good practice, to just read items 1 to 15 when maybe item 13 is a newly created director's position that's going to be a $120,000 salary. And it looks like you're trying to, and I think that's where, if we follow what Kevin, Ms. McLean, and Ms. Librera are suggesting, and other people are endorsing, that's where you would need my guidance to say, I think these items should be earmarked, and or the guidance of the committee chair, and or the guidance of the board president to, between the three of us, someone should say, hey, this is more out there. As Ms. McLean was speaking, if I could, I was thinking back on a couple of things. Most of what's on the agenda most nights, and again, I'm not saying whether we should read the whole thing, part of it, none of it, most of it is routine appointments, approvals that, we know we have a lunch aide. The lunch aide resigned for whatever reason. If you want to know why, I can't tell you because it's personal, right? We have to have a lunch aide. Is in the budget. We're hiring somebody. There's very little, by law, the board is supposed to react unless they have very good cause, and it has to be very good cause, to the recommendation of the chief school administrator. So there's not a lot of discussion in a lot of areas, right? But to Mr. McLean's point, if we opened up every segment, is there any questions or discussion before it was put forward? Where there is discussion, it would give everybody the opportunity to take part in it. And I would think more times than not, there probably wouldn't be. But where there was, we could have a discussion before something gets moved, regardless of how we read it. It would open up for discussion, not a discussion after the fact where, you're going to sound like the naysayer who's trying to throw a roadblock. It's a question, beforehand. Over the last 3 years, I could think of a couple of issues that were major issues, right? The reorganization being one, the preschool being another, the buses, the YMCA, the buses at Pierpont, the courtesy busing, right? That we, things that were abnormal, major. All of those, with the exception of the Y, the pre-care, all of those were discussed 3, 4, 5, 6 months, some of them almost a year, at a variety of meetings before it ever got to a resolution. And with the before and after care, it was discussed at a meeting, and it wasn't that the board wasn't aware, it was that the public wasn't aware, and when they heard about it, we got the feedback and we tabled it. So I think we are in tune. I think we kind of know, I wouldn't show up here with a resolution to say, let's reorganize the schools and let's vote on it tonight, right? So I think we kind of know where we need to have discussion. The question is, how much full discussion do we give ourselves time for? That's the question. And so is it just a report that I give, and then if somebody has a question, they ask, or is it really a dialogue? And that's, I think, where we're getting through. Maybe opening the door to more dialogue.
And we've had discussion, because we do work with the committees, and as Mr. Hurley said, there's always a balance between, if we do everything as a committee of the whole, then really you have to try to get everybody up to the same level of understanding with something, and it'd be that much more time of needed to do that. Whereas with our committees, the idea is the committee tries to rise to a level of understanding that they can work with the administration, understand what the administration is suggesting, weigh it, and then come back to the board with a recommendation. Yes, we recommend, as the committee, we recommend that we do this. Or if there were concerns in finance, there's frequently things that have been discussed and it never actually makes it because the finance committee's pushing quite hard about the costs and that sort of thing. And maybe things get revised, and by the time it comes here, the finance committee is pretty confident. But you wouldn't want, well, you might, but it might be difficult to get 9 members at that level of understanding of a very detailed budget, for as one example, right? And as you said, we don't want, I think, to follow that model where, we're in personnel, items 1 through 20, approve, move on, that type of thing. Because there are times where we will want to recognize, somebody that's retiring after years of service, and it's nice to give a little shout out to how many ever are watching, that this person has done, has been exemplary as a staff member and employee, and we want to recognize that. When the REF is able to, help us with donations and awards and that sort of thing, it's good to be recognized in the form of an announced resolution. But there are many things, I think we'd all agree, that, are less necessary to go through. So, again, and the purpose tonight is just to get some ideas and some thoughts and
You know, a funny thought just came to me. That I think the thing that most people who are watching or will be watching and are interested in tonight is the school calendar. When do we start school? When do we get out of school? When's graduation? When's spring break? You know, and I mean that's probably the most important thing to most people listening tonight. And we just set the school calendar and I'll guarantee you that everybody's going to know tomorrow. The faculty may already know because it's posted. You know, they're already planning spring break next year. I mean, they know. So, you know, I think people who are interested do look to get the answers. I think I think not to belabor the point about not wasting time, you know, by wasting time being redundant, but I think if we could find a way to have more in-depth, and maybe that's even more discussion when warranted about topics, and not feel time constraints. Because we have, the agendas right now in January are very short. You know, come April or May, there's a lot of retirements, resignations, appointments, and, you know, they go on. And policy, I mean, we're going to be approving in mass, but still approving the entire policy manual. That's a lot, you know, to read through. And are we going to read policy, you know, 4111, you know, affirmative action, policy 4112, you know, are we going to say as listed? See, and if we're going to read them all, we're going to be here, you know. So there's the practicality of certain things I think that we need to come to an agreement on. That's all.
Mrs. Jones?
Let me see if I understand this correctly. If I were to do curriculum instruction again tonight, I would say this now. There are 9 resolutions on the curriculum instruction. 3 students for home instruction, 2 for harassment, intimidation, and bullying, 2 for overnight trips, a curricular club name change, our school calendar is up for approval, there is a field trip approval, and out-of-district placements. Is that the way you would like me to do it next time?
Well, what I, and again, this, you know, it's embryonic, this idea I had, but it was, the idea that I was thinking of was to have this kind of hybrid between what we used to have as a work session and our regular meeting structure that we have today. And so that, you know, that kind of overview of what we have on the agenda, which everybody has in front of them, would be something done before we ever go into moving resolutions. And it would be a work session, you know, mini work session where, and the point would be to ask, you know, are there, you know, Mr. Hurley may have suggested, okay, item 4 is one you probably want to have some discussion about. But we also can open it up and say, you know, members of the board, you've seen these 9 resolutions on curriculum and instruction. Is there anything that you'd like to have a, you know, a little discussion about to understand better? Is everybody comfortable with these resolutions? That sort of thing. Before we go into moving.
Can I,
Yes,
you know, and again, I really don't have, you know, a horse in the race, as they say, and Mr. McLean discussed this idea of his with me, like literally 10 seconds before we started the meeting. So
I only got it about 30 seconds.
yeah, on the bus. So it was fresh. But I would suggest that most of the time there won't be a lot of detailed discussion. For example, tonight in curriculum instruction, Mr. Olin had a question about, I think it was about no, it wasn't. It was on
co-curricular activities.
Co-curricular, yeah, but I don't even think, yeah, it was there. I don't even know if that was where it was. But let's say it was there. And you had a question, right, Ms. Jones, about the overnight trip? So if we start off, we haven't had a curriculum instruction meeting, right? So you start off by saying, are there any questions or updates that you have of either me or Mr. Hurley or the chair? And if people want to have some questions, and maybe that leads to a little discussion about, well, you know, what are the kids in the FBLA, you know, that won level, what do they win on? And if I have that, I tell you, and if not, I say, oh, I'll get it to you, and I'll get it to you, that sort of thing. There might have been some questions about the school calendar. And then I would suggest that you don't just say we have 3 this and 2 that, but you would say resolution 1 is students on home instruction as listed, 2 and 3, the harassment, intimidation, bullying decision recommended by the superintendent, the overnight trip for FBLA, the overnight trip for FCCLA, you know, a capsule version. Because to Mr. Racine's point, the people listening at home, it doesn't matter if the HIB thing was 2016-09. That means nothing. You know? So by reading the resolution, it's, you know, you're still saying it's a co-curricular, a change name, and maybe something like the gender change to the Gender Sexually Awareness Club. Maybe that's something that we want to have out there. So maybe you read that name. You know, the overnight trip, well, who? The overnight trip for FBLA. But the verbiage, the legal, to Mr. Med's point, there is legal verbiage that has to go in a resolution. A resolution has to be written a certain way. Doesn't mean it has to be read a certain way. You see what I'm saying? So I think...
As long as there's a public record.
Right, public record, right. So that's how I would do it. I would, somewhere between, I think what the, I don't want to say this as a board member, but I think when, in my other board, where they just say 1 to 10, that's a little too extreme. But if we said, number one, home instruction as listed, because the other verbiage really doesn't mean anything to anybody.
And we do, yes, please.
Well, it seems like we're far above minimal compliance, and sometimes I guess we get verbose about stuff that doesn't matter, like Mr. Racine said. So as long as we don't get to the point of, 1 to 10, yeah, all right.
Right.
Then I think we could probably ride the line closer to minimal compliance, and always open for more discussion on these points. Because somebody worked for our town for 20 years. They were point number 4 out of 1 through 12. Doesn't do them justice.
Right. And to that point, every year the board has certain things that it has to approve. It approves the curriculum every year, the entire curriculum, not just the new curriculum. It approves the entire code of student conduct, right? I mean, these are routine boilerplate approvals, right? And normally what happens is it approves the policy manual every year in Mass. That's part, we approve revisions individually, but every year there is a thing that says approving the board policy manual. If we followed Mr. McLean's suggestion and said, is there any discussion or questions about the code of conduct? Or is there anything new in the code of conduct this year that we should pay attention to, right? But what we do often at the meeting is we just say, as approved, the code of conduct, right? And there's never real discussion, because it may not warrant, but it would be nice to have that discussion. Maybe we've changed something in the detention policy, or maybe we changed something in, some aspect of how a student transgression is going to be handled. It'd be nice to have that discussion and have the board be aware of it. Because ultimately, you're approving it, right? And ultimately, should there be, as it goes up the chain, if there's a problem with it, it comes back here. So that would give ourselves the opportunity to have those kinds of discussions. I think that's what Mr. McLean's point is.
And if we look at our policy, we'll have to look. I don't know if we have any policy about the way meetings are structured. We'd have to pay attention to that. But we do have a policy that we conduct our meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
And, we haven't had a true parliamentarian, I guess, since Mr. Novoselsky retired.
Right.
But from what I would understand is that, again, legally, we need to put these resolutions worded in a certain way, and we need to vote on them to approve them. We're not. And so that formal approval under the guidelines of Robert's Rules of Orders requires that a member move it, that another member second it, and that there's an opportunity for discussion.
That's it.
Okay? And then we vote. Okay? Because in that discussion period, someone may say, no, I want to revise this, I suggest an amendment to this resolution, and then we go through another, do I hear a second to that, and you vote on and then you come back. So there's some, there are some technical things that need to be done to approve it. And having it open for discussion in between the second and the vote is one of those things, but it doesn't mean all of our discussion has to be inside of that. So we can have a casual, not casual, but you know what I mean, not such a formal discussion of a topic outside of when we actually move the resolution, second it, put it open for discussion, none, vote on it, that sort of thing.
And reading the agenda, prior to the meeting, and thinking about some of those areas that you might have. I'll give an example, which I don't think I'm violating anything because it's a public meeting, it's public record. But I mentioned how the board I serve on just goes through 1 to 10, 1 to 20. But with that said, there was a tabled motion at last meeting because there was some debate about whether or not a policy is required to have 2 readings if it's not a newly revised one, but just a of an approval of a policy for the sake of having a new date on it. Okay? And it was only up for one reading, and one of the members said, wait a minute, I think there should be two, so it was tabled. So the point I was making is, even without reading it, the board still was able to have a discussion and table. You know, it doesn't restrict that ability. In fact, I think Mr. McLean's suggestion might even enhance some discussion, because there's an opportunity for it. But it's just, again, we've had this conversation before, and, it's a healthy conversation to have.
So, I'd like to see us move it past the point of conversation.
Right.
And we either decide to, stick our toes in the water of change, or we decide that we stick with our current format.
Well, January 30th, we have the high school presentation here for STEM. And so we'll get a few people out, right? And but usually it's the younger schools where you get more of the parents coming out, but we'll get some people out. If you want to try like a trial run, January 30th meeting, and see how we like it.
Okay, so we would get the agenda like it is now?
Nothing different.
Nothing different, okay. And then could you just give us a suggestion, the way you would really prefer, so that when we have a big audience there, would like to do it?
Well, there's nothing on tonight's agenda that I would think would warrant a real detailed discussion. But I would leave it up to the board. To what questions might you have? And I think if I was looking at this, I might have had a couple of questions. Well, there were some questions raised tonight, but raising them not right before we're going to vote, raising them at the beginning of the discussion, right?
And again, one thing that mandates really for each of us is to make sure we exercise the discipline of reading through the agenda, in a thoughtful way, reading through the agenda ahead of the meeting. And I'm guilty of. I know I've come to some meetings where the first time I'm hearing a resolution is when it's being read, right? That's happened once in 13 years.
You mean you didn't do it on the
So
plane?
it was, but no, I'm usually on the bus or the plane, right, doing it. But so, that's what, you can't rely on that you're going to hear a resolution in its entirety at the meeting and then be able to ask questions. You got to prep a little bit. But, by scanning, and maybe you haven't had a chance to read it in depth, but you're looking at it and say, I don't really understand what this is about. That's a good point of discussion.
I would also use the communication. I tried to get away from wasting time and mine and yours by just going through every resolution and saying you're going to be asked to approve 7 new hires who are replacing people who are on maternity leave or something like that. So I tried to pinpoint a couple of resolutions I think you should pay attention to in the communication, right? Yeah. I also tried to pinpoint a couple of topics that may or may not be resolutions, but all fit under finance or curriculum or buildings and grounds, right? So even if you use the communication as a place to maybe think about, and then at the appropriate time in the meeting, if there's something you wanted to ask related to what's in the communication. One of the things that I would find, I might need some real discipline for this, but I might just, give a very short superintendent's report that when we get to the segment on curriculum and instruction, the things I would be talking about at the beginning of the meeting, I could talk about then. You know what I mean? So I'd say the same things, but I would say them at different points
I
in the
really
meeting.
like your communications, and I read that, it's the first thing that I read.
Yeah.
Before I come to read it, meeting, I've read it 3 times before I come to meeting. That to me is more important and gives me more knowledge of what's going on than the actual agenda.
Well, thank you. Well, see, so then that's the idea behind the discussion, because those are the type of topics that I would suggest that we talk about, right? Or I would suggest that you might want to talk about based on that. And since you look at the agenda, I do it by looking at the agenda, looking at what's going on. Any one of you look at the agenda, it might not be something I touched upon, but when the moment comes in the meeting, when we're on to building and grounds, and I didn't mention something, but somebody has a thought, that's the time to bring it up. So that's kind of what, it's a more focused, I think, and I don't want to put words into your mouth in terms of your idea, but it's more focused to say, let's have the discussion about curriculum now under this part of the agenda.
Yeah, and that would be something different from before, right? This hybrid idea is that, okay, during, this particular part of the meeting, we're putting our curriculum and instruction hats on. Okay, and we're going to have a discussion outside of motions and, report from the committee chairperson, et cetera, et cetera. And then once we're kind of, the group is at the point where we say, okay, we're going to move it now ahead with the agenda items, and you would move them very, very simply. They'd have to, again, be seconded. We may decide, again, that there's 8 of them, and one needs to be pulled out so it can have a separate vote, because, there may be committee members that aren't, that want to vote a different way on it, that sort of thing. We can do that. I mean, somebody can say, in fact, you would be encouraged to say, if you look at 9 items, and you're thinking, 8 of them I've got no issue with, 1 I do, you would be encouraged to ask that we move that separately, because you may have a dissenting vote on that, or a comment that you want to make, that sort of thing. So, but we have our curriculum and instruction hats on, do a good job, do a thorough job with it, and then move on. Personnel hats on, or that sort of way. That's as I said, kind of an embryonic thought process at this point. More comments?
For example, the one-to-one Google Chromebook, I guess, was there a meeting about this previously, and the pros and cons of this, or different versions of it's one-to-one for 4th grade and up, but younger than that, they don't really need it until the machines get older, and then we pass them down? Like, did that come across during a meeting? Was that a closed session? Was that a committee?
Well, it's been an evolution over several years, and
Yeah.
I think you could speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's been updated to the board. It's a curriculum decision, it's also a technology decision, it's a finance decision. It's been discussed with the curriculum and instruction committee over time, and with the finance committee in terms of budget, and reported to the board, and it's part of our district goals, has been, I have to look to see if it is this year, and has been part of our various administrator goals in terms of getting there. So yeah, it's been discussed over time, right.
So where are we now? How close to one-to-one? One-to-one are we?
We're about 600 devices district-wide away.
And if the finance...
700, maybe 700.
If the finance committee dissented on approving it after curriculum said, that's I guess the procedure for, it seems like it goes through so many different departments that when it goes through one committee to another, that the only when we get all together can we really discuss it the right way. And this is where the public would have their chance when it's on the agenda to say, hey, this is a great idea, we love it, or how much is this going to cost? Can we do it slower?
Well, let me answer. Well, yes and no. If we were going out for a second question, or if we were going out to exceed the budget cap, it would be a different story. But within the existing budget, the recommendation to the Finance Committee is to approve the budget that stays within the cap and is allocating funds to maintain an instructional program that the board has approved under curriculum and instruction and co-curricular. So it's not as though we're saying, we're spending extra money. We're spending money to fulfill the program. Why Chromebooks? Because they're $250 a machine and not $1,100 a machine, and we have aligned a great deal of our curriculum to through Google Docs and Google School and things of that nature, and we've had committees working on it for the last 4 or 5 years. So, to your point, it's informational, to get information out to folks, get feedback, but it wouldn't be where the Finance Committee could necessarily put a kibosh on curriculum. It would be, does the Finance Committee accept the budget as being a functional budget within the acceptable cap?
And that's actually an important concept, I think, is that in a couple of important concepts, one of which we read through the Code of Ethics last week, right? And for me, people that have listened to me will know exactly what I'm going to go to, is that, you know, we as
Number
a
6?
board, yes, number 6. We as a board, you know, don't run the school district. Our job is to see that the district is run well. And so how do we do that? The primary thing we do is we hire a chief schools administrator and we hire a business administrator. And really those people are advising us how to, you know, how to get the ship where we want it to go. And we've worked on, you know, and that's not always fixed in stone. We're in a long-range strategic planning evolution now, but we've always had, you know, long-range goals. This is where we want to get to, and then there's proposals. How do we get there? So, as Mr. Hurley said, we went about this in a way where we built a curriculum with this in mind, and we implemented that curriculum first, as opposed to going out and trying to, you know, just find money and buying the hardware and trying to make it work. And so the board approved this curriculum, and then the finance committee is listening to, you know, analyzing how we're going to pay for everything,
Right.
not just one item or
Right.
the other. And what the board votes on is not an itemized budget. It's presented to us in an itemized budget so that we know that it has merit and it has, you know, it's based on fact and that sort of thing. But we vote on the full budget. And then it's the administration's responsibility to deliver the educational goals inside of that budget.
Right. So really Reader's Digest, to go back again, just to, and why sometimes, I'm sure there's board members who have been on the board now for several years who may either not be aware or maybe we didn't discuss it in depth, okay? But we developed a curriculum not based on a device. We developed a curriculum based on problem solving, project-based lessons, real-world issues, access to information, and so on. We then had a committee of teachers who visited 7 schools throughout the state of New Jersey, the entire state, that had blended curriculum one-to-one. How are you doing it? How are you implementing it? What have been some of the pitfalls? What are some of the devices you use? How did you get this done? We examined schools that had bring your own device. We had examined schools that went to just classroom devices that the kids don't take home. We went to, you know, the gamut. Now we get, as this evolution goes on, and the curriculum gets revised and so on, now you get to the point, okay, we think it's a good idea for kids, and the standard of operation in the business here is, you know, the older kids get to bring the home, the other ones use it in class. What's the best one for the younger ones to use? Is it an iPad or is it a computer? What's the best one for the middle grades to use? And then it becomes, okay, maybe in the perfect world, the laptop is great. But now let's look at the fiscal responsibility. That's where we get into the board, to the finance committee rather. And we say, okay, well, if we go with laptops, it's going to be, you know, $1,200, $1,500 a machine. And what does that bring us that the Chromebook doesn't bring us? So the trade-off then. So it's an evolution that takes over time. And I think one of the things that, to use the model that was done in the schools, to bring it to the board level in terms of awareness, it is that kind of discussion and time where you come to discovery of what's the best path to take. You see? So I think on the board level, rather than just seeing at the end of the year, here's a goal we want to get to here by the end of, and you know, you show that trust, and we vote yes. We take a few minutes or 20 minutes at meetings that we spend doing something else, and we talk about the progress of the blended curriculum, so that, and it's not so much that we're going to debate it or vote against it or say it's a bad idea. It's more that you have an understanding and you can weigh in on the direction we're going in, because I think sometimes that could be lacking.
I would also add that having that type of discussion not only gives us the opportunity to make sure that, you know, we all fully understand the resolutions and we understand how they align with the strategic priorities of the district. But again, and I think Mr. Chu's point is well taken, that we don't expect to make this change and all of a sudden have a flooded room of audience members. But I do think that more and more, perhaps those 100 listeners today, maybe that number grows, maybe it stays at 100, but they'll become active participants in that discussion as well, or would be more likely to become active participants in that discussion if it's those substantive or strategic issues that are being discussed, like this exchange that we just heard around technology. And then it would make it, again, just it's a cycle. It would make it more and more likely that someone might come up to one of us on the street or in the bakery or on the sidelines of a playing field and say, hey, I heard that discussion that went on, and here's my feedback, here's my input, and just puts us in a better position to do what we're primarily here to do, which is to represent the residents of Rutherford in terms of these decisions.
We had discussed for about a year and a half at many board meetings and at 2 or maybe 3 public meetings, the idea of reorganizing schools to try to get as close as we could to a middle school. And it started off, you remember, with modulars at Union School and so on and so forth. And it finally came down to the idea that we were going to have a 3 schools, Pierpont, Washington, and Lincoln, be like 1 to 5s or 1 to 6s, I forget. And we were going to have and we thought that was, then we thought that was the best way of doing it, because we thought people were more inclined to the community school. People wanted the neighborhood school. I want my kid nearby. And then we had the last roundtable meeting, which was very well attended, because again, it was a hot button topic, and a lot of people spoke to the fact that, we like the idea of the schools being closer, but we don't think there won't be enough classes. There'll be 2 grade 2s, there'll be 2 grade 6s. The age range is too much. And I heard all that night. It was the Wednesday of Memorial Day week, and then Thursday I went to Washington School, because we had off that Friday because it was the snow day, and I saw and I was watching their program that they run, and I'm saying, they're right. I mean, the age range would be terrible, and we were like this close, to the finish line of the reorganization proposal when I came back, and I said, you know what? We heard something that made us rethink it. So the dialogue leads sometimes to discovery that as a superintendent or as a board or as administrators, we don't always have when we open up the dialogue. So that's why I think more discussion about things and more input. And I'm trusting that if people aren't coming to the meeting, there's some people watching it, they're reading the minutes, they're reading, they're hearing things that come out at PTA meetings from board members, they're hearing things that come out through the grapevine and so on, and they respond. And I think the discussion is a good thing.
Mr. Mazzone, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we've had, I think, a good dialogue, that why not try the condensed reading of the agenda on the 30th, since we do have a presentation. I think Mr. Chu's point, again, was well taken, that, our meetings are efficient, we are covering the points. I know that Diane's been on the board a long time. I think everyone should be comfortable with what we're presenting, and I think, good dialogue is important. So I say let's try it for the 30th. I don't know what we need to do to make this official, if everyone can live with it for the 30th. But
I don't think it has to be official, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, we'll just check to make sure we don't have a policy regarding the structure. I don't think we do.
No, we don't.
We do have to operate,
Structure.
again, by Robert's Rules of Order.
Well, no, in terms of Robert's rule,
Yeah.
but not in terms of we have to
But not
be-
the way we do it. So then I think it's, it's,
Overrides it all the time. So,
Okay.
just going forward, it should be formalized when we have decisions.
so.
But Robert's rules of law, right?
Of order.
That only, you only go to that after your PTA rules. I mean, your Board of Ed rules. So do you have a separate book?
Well, no. The Board of Ed has a group of policies, right, that tell us, and one of the policies is that we will conduct business according to Robert's Rules of Order.
You just go by that? Because like PTAs and all that, you have to go by PTA, then you go to Robert's rules if you don't.
Well, it depends how your bylaw,
Yeah.
right, there are going to be
So-
bylaws, and in our bylaws, I guess when I'm saying policies, actually.
We have bylaws, right, the policy materials bylaws, and we will take a look tomorrow to see how detailed the bylaws are about.
So
the
we'll
structure.
review it and make sure we're,
Okay.
but it really becomes more, I think, an issue of structure of the agenda. And I think that falls under the prerogative of the
Yeah.
president and the.
We'll have to look and see. I think the structure of the agenda would not change, right? And we're still going to write resolutions, read resolutions. right now, we read abbreviated versions of resolutions.
Well, the changes I would picture, if we looked at tonight's agenda as a model, and I'm just going to say this, and then we'll go once more around the table just to make sure that everybody has a chance to weigh in if they would like. I think what we would do is we're going to, where we open the meeting to the public, we're going to make that for any topic, not that if it's a non-agenda
Right.
item, you have to wait until we're done
And
with the business.
and that's something you can do,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't know whether we would do it in two segments or not, where first we would say items of the agenda, get them, and then during all those, move to any topic. Just two different, but upfront in the meeting. So we would do that, and then we would move into, following the same order of the committees, we would move into personnel, and so there will be a meeting. No, there won't be a meeting by then, so there won't be a meeting to give a report on.
No.
But what you would do is, you'd just be asking, in general.
Do I have to
for-
read the motion, like, to move the
Well,
following
so this
resignation?
is going to be similar. This at the beginning of this, we're going to have our personnel hats on, and the beginning of it's going to be similar to the work sessions, right?
Okay. Then I
And
don't
so,
read
no, you might give a recap to people just to say we've got 21.
No, I'm talking about the first part. what
Oh,
we're
the
doing
first part.
during
No, you wouldn't
personnel.
have to read that yet,
All right,
right? Because we're not moving things yet.
all right.
But we would, we would ask if there were any points in particular, and Mr. Hurley would have already advised you if he felt there was something that we definitely want to have on the floor and discuss, or, we encourage. And we're going to ask everyone at the table if they have a particular question or comment regarding any of the resolutions. Again, someone going to kind of the extreme that I wouldn't expect to happen too frequently, somebody may say, I don't think we should be moving this tonight because I feel we need to get more information. And we'd have a little discussion about this, and then maybe we would decide as a group that, okay, we're not going to move that tonight. That might be done more of a straw poll type of thing. We'd have to make sure that it didn't put us in a corner on timing on something,
Right.
that sort of thing. But we could have that discussion. And another another option might be somebody says, well, I'd really like to see number 18 as we vote on that separately. We vote on all the others together, but on 18, I want to vote on that separately. And so we do that, type thing. And then we would, then you would read the intro. Okay, I moved this, it'd have to be seconded. Any questions? Voice vote approved, right? And then you would say, I'm moving personnel 1 through 18. We'd look for a second. It would get seconded. Say formally have to ask any questions or comments regarding this. At that point, I would expect none because hopefully we've discussed it all as needed prior. Hear none, and then we do take the vote, and it's done.
Board Policy 1120 deals with Board of Education meetings, and I just took a quick look. I don't see anything that would preclude the change that.
I don't see it either, so.
Yeah, it simply says what you have to do annually at board meetings in terms of ethics and certain appointments and things like that. It says that you have to give time to the members of the public. You can limit that time. And it could be about topics, and it talks about, having discussion, but keeping it to, business that the board would deal with. It talks about things that should be in executive session or things that shouldn't be discussed in public. So there's nothing in there that would preclude, what you're suggesting. And again, I think the ideas are great. Let's keep in mind that it's not really a major change. I can't think of too many items on agendas that we wouldn't vote on that night. I can't think of too many items that would require a deep debate. It just allows us to have discussion, umbrella-type discussions, maybe not even related to the actual resolutions, about what's going on with curriculum, what's going on in buildings and grounds, things of that nature. We may have things that pop up, a boiler that's broken in a building that we haven't, and that we don't bring, it's not a resolution to let you know that we're having a problem, but maybe it was a few-minute discussion about what's going on with buildings and grounds. You're aware of that. Because down the road, that may become a topic when the budget comes around. and we have to maybe replace it. So, that's, I think, the point, to get more information to each other. It's not so much about the resolutions. Most of the resolutions are things that need to be acted on in a timely fashion, and they're the normal process of business. The things that are not, I would be remiss, unless something really was emergent, if I threw something on there that was a major change. We restructured some of our supervisory and administrative last year. We had discussions with curriculum instruction and personnel at several meetings long before it ever came forward to the board level. So you won't get surprised. I don't like surprises. Nobody likes surprises. But it will allow us the opportunity to have a little more detailed discussion.
So just once around the tables, anybody with a additional comment or question? Okay, kind of a straw poll. Is everybody comfortable with being a little uncomfortable at the next meeting? Yeah. Well, and to the extent we can talk ahead, just kind of, because I know it's normal when something changes, right? That yes.
I'm not opposed to the change.
No.
I'm not sure I want to do it on the 30th when we have an audience, though.
You're going to have a bigger audience every meeting after that. The high school kids, you're going to get 3 or 4, it's high school kids. The little kids, you're going to get everybody, the parents, the grandmothers, everybody's going to be here.
Okay.
I think. I think your smallest audience is going to be the 30th. But that said, we usually take a little break and the audience leaves.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We have them. I think that's nice.
It's not a performance, It's
Right.
just,
And we'll have a little fun with
fine,
that. That's all.
yeah.
But it will be. It's going to be fun. Yeah. And you know what? And if we find out it doesn't accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish, then we'll go back to the drawing board and look at something else.
And there may not be a lot to talk about. If there isn't, we don't talk about it. But if there is, at least the opportunity's there. Okay. I'll give you one other quick thing, like administrative council meetings. Instead of, I send you the thing, there's things that I could talk a little bit about there at different parts. So maybe I take my report. My report's going to be tonight. My report would have been, hey, remember about the roundtable meeting. The other stuff I would have saved then for the segments that we got there. So I'm not saying more. I'm just saying it at different times in the meeting.
But you're definitely not saying more.
I'm not saying more because you're already going into the third quarter right now. Yeah.
Okay. So I at least think that was a good discussion. I appreciate everyone's inputs, and we will move ahead. So we are at the point for a legislative update. Any questions?
There's a couple more that I'd just like to read to you that you might find interesting. These are bills that were released December 12th. This is from the Assembly. A785 requires the state to pay educational costs of students who reside in homeless shelter outside a district of residence for more than 1 year. The state would be required to pay the educational costs of any student who resides for more than 1 year in a domestic violence shelter or a transitional living facility or a homeless shelter located outside of the student's district. A3944 requires the New Jersey Department of Education to develop an educational fact sheet for distribution to parents of student athletes and cheerleaders concerning the use and misuse of prescription opiates. And A4206 requires candidates for election to a school board to file with their nominating petitions specific affirmation that they have not been convicted of crimes that would disqualify them from office. They had one that was hired, it was in the papers, was it Lodi?
Lodi.
That won the election in November, and then they found out that he had a criminal record, and so he couldn't do that. So that's going to be all part of the file.
And that debate's intensifying now because in terms of replacing him, if you are taken off the board because of a criminal conviction, the county executive picks a replacement.
Right.
But the board is split where one board saying, well, Ms. Peck should do that, and the other side is saying, no, because he was not sworn in yet as a board member. So that now the debate is now going in a different direction.
Proverbial gray area. Okay. Very good. And for legislative, that was it? Thank you. Any questions on legislative? Thank you. It is 9:29, it's the same members of the public present. I would invite anybody to make comments. Seeing no one, we will close it. And do we have need?
No, we don't.
No need for an executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're seconded by Mr. Racine. And we can do this by a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.